Stuck by a fluoride.
Stuck by a fluoride.
Stuck by a fluoride.
Stuck by a fluoride.
I first started screen printing in the mid-90s. I was going to school at the time in Maine, and I had some friends who knew how to print, and they gave me some pointers about what kind of emulsion to use, what types of inks to use, and I just took it from there. And at the time I was also playing in a band, and so screen printing was a way to make posters really easily for the band and put them up around town and have them be a really immediate way for people to come check out the show. There was the practical angle of being able to promote a show very quickly and colorfully and inexpensively. And I also liked the process too. The process really meshed well with my illustration style at the time. I've always been inclined to have more line art in my work, and by that I mean black lines on white paper. I don't do a lot of sketches that are final sketches where there's fine pencil work or really subtle details. I like to use pure black ink and different hatching techniques to convey tone. And so screen printing works really well with that because it's color separations that are generated from original black drawings. And so I always like that mental process of having to think of a multicolor print while drawing it in single color.
Cool.
So I've done a few halftone prints here and there, but again, my screen printing work is something that I do to showcase my drawing work. So I consider myself probably foremost an illustrator, somebody who draws, somebody who makes pictures, and then a printmaker second. There are some people who probably are more willing to let the design come out in the printing process and are more comfortable with improvisation in the later steps of the printing process. And for me, it's fairly planned out from the beginning. Even in the drawings that I do, I make a pencil drawing first and then trace on top of the pencil drawing with black India ink onto frosted mylar or some other type of transparency material to make the film. And so that pencil drawing is really the majority of the work happens there, and I map out every single line. There's room for a little bit of improvisation when I'm inking. I can hatch a different way, or sometimes the design will take a slight turn at that point. But really, for me to get the look that I have in my head, I need to map it out. I've gotten the printing down to a fairly exact science, although there are always twists and turns with the printing process. But when I go to print, I can fairly predict, based on how big the print is, how many colors there are going to be. I can predict how long it's going to take. So for me, the challenge is always the drawing. It's pushing myself to draw something bigger or draw something more complicated or draw a different type of subject matter. And that's where it's harder for me to predict how much time it takes. And where I get my ideas are from other artists or from life or from things that I'm thinking about or from books. I like to draw animals. I like to draw people. I like to draw plants. I like to draw natural forms. There are people that I know who love to draw buildings, and they enjoy the straight lines. And I've tended to not go that direction. I'm more drawn to use a loaded phrase, the natural world, whatever that means. I guess by that I mean biological forms, plants, people, animals, organic forms. Although I tend to put my own spin on it too. I don't necessarily draw something from life all the time or from a photo all the time. Sometimes I'll use photos as reference. Sometimes it'll just come straight out of my head. Like this past print, Stoked by a Fluoride,